I'm saying it because it's true. Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, and for the rest of your life.
Is that from Casablanca?
Yes.
Nice. I got one. Woo!
You and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
Non mi piace il feeling. Spero to start.
I think this just might be my masterpiece.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast. This is Justin.
And I'm Joey.
And in this episode, we picked out some criterions that we know nothing about. First up, we'll be checking out how people on many levels are impacted in the seedy world of the Italian mafia in director Matteo Garrone's Gomorrah from 2008. Plus, we'll be doing plenty of California dreaming as we step into Wong Kar-Wai's visually dazzling world of hopeless romantics in 1994's Chungking Express.
And just a heads up, we do discuss our full thoughts on the films, so if you haven't seen a movie, just skip forward to avoid any spoilers.
And if you want to join the club, make sure to hit subscribe, leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. Been a couple weeks, Joey. How you been?
I can't complain too much. Got hit second in Charles, so I got a bunch of Criterions before the sale started. And then I got the stuff from the sale, which I think we'll talk about in a bit. So I'll just talk about all of that together.
Okay.
I got my platinum trophy in The Last of Us 2. So it means I got all the trophies for people who aren't familiar with how that works.
You a big fan of that game? I heard a lot of complaints about characters getting killed off and stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who had some complaints about stuff. So spoilers, and for people who haven't played The Last of Us 2 and want to, so they kill off Joel, who was one of the main characters from the first game. They kill him off pretty early. After they make you play as the character who kills him, and then they make you play as her again later on in the game. Basically to make you understand that she's basically the same as the quote hero character, and then make you realize that neither she nor the hero character Ellie are actually heroes. There are no real good guys or bad guys in this tale, because everything that Abby, the bad guy, did, Ellie does too. So it's a really good and layered story, but a lot of people hate it, and they also talk about some social justice issues, and because Ellie's a lesbian and there's a trans character and things of that nature, and people hate it for that reason. But the story is really good and looks great, and I imagine much like the first game, it'll win a ton of Game of the Year awards. So yeah, no, I'm very happy that I finished getting the platinum. I'd already beaten it, but I went back through to get some extra trophies and find all the collectibles and that kind of stuff. Because now, so this is Wednesday. So in 2 days, Ghost of Tsushima, the big samurai epic from Sucker Punch, will be coming out, and it has the Kurosawa mode where you can play in black and white to make it look like a Kurosawa movie. And they drew a lot of inspiration from Seven Samurai and Yojimbo and 13 Assassins. So I'm really looking forward to that game.
Nice. Yeah. Been a long time since I've gotten into any games on my own. I never did play that last Uncharted game, but yeah, Fallout 4 I think was the last one I kind of dabbled in. I played the heck out of 3 and New Vegas and Skyrim. Those were the ones I really played hardcore back in the day.
Nice. It's a much different style of game than what I usually play. I did right before I played The Last of Us. I did play Uncharted 4 since they're the same developer and kind of get back used to how they work their games, even though they're different styles of games. And then of course, the other thing that I was into, which I sent you a picture, was I got my tattoo today. It was the first one I've gotten in like 10 years, maybe more, 11 years. I don't know. It's been a long time. A long time since I've gotten one, so it was pretty exciting. And so and Justin, much like most everybody didn't know what it was either, so don't feel bad. I expected you to know, to be fair, but
well, it's like an Asian like lion thing kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's to be fair, it's small. I mean, in the movie, it's a very small symbol. On her sword. So I mean, but if there was
Beatrix
anybody,
Kiddo's katana, right?
Yes, if anybody was going to know that it was the Hattori Hanzo symbol on the bride's sword, it would have been you. But so,
oops.
I mean, it's fair. It's fair. Like
it's just like a glimpse of it in the movie. Well, I don't know how much they showed in the movie, but yeah, unfortunately, that's. I mean, yeah. Oh well. All right. Cool. Yeah. Let's see here. What is up with me? Yeah. Just same old. You know, watching lots of movies, writing lots of reviews. I'm kind of happy with my new system on Letterboxd. Like, I was never really sure how I should do it with like, if like I want to post like a short review right away, or if I want to like just say that I watched it and then come back later, delete that, and then write the review. But now what I got is like my what's coming up list, which I did only want that to be like 5 movies. Now it's like 12, but I mean, such is life. And then after I actually watch them, they go into like a review backlog, and so then I review them out of there. And I've been doing them all in order. The one time I got real messed up, like a year and a half ago, I let it get really backed up, and then I started like doing things out of order. So like I kept putting certain reviews off, and then at a certain point you just end up having to watch the whole damn movie again, and that's no good. So I had to let a couple movies go. For instance, I watched Eternal Sunshine back then, and yeah, I just never got around to writing about it. So gonna have to get back to that one day. So Joe, do you ever deal with any infestations where you've lived?
In a couple of places, there's been some infestations. Like when I moved back to the Florence area a couple years ago, the place where I moved in to live, like it didn't matter how much it was cleaned, how much it was bombed. We bombed it while I lived there multiple times. There was Madagascar cockroaches. They just could not get rid of them. Yep, the big fat ones. Like we could not get rid of them. Like the bombs would make them go away for like a couple weeks, and then they'd just be right back.
Hissing cockroaches and with little white specks in South Carolina, palmetto bugs. That's what everyone call them. But
yeah, well, it's because they don't want to be like we have roaches. I mean, like we have palmetto bugs because But and I've lived in places where there's been fleas and stuff, because of pets. But you can generally just bomb those out and it's fine. So.
Yeah, we had a situation where, like, over the 4th of July weekend, we changed, like, trash companies. And so they moved the trash day up on us without telling anybody. So we had our trash sent out for, like, a whole week. And so then I had a bunch of black trash bags in my garage getting all stacked up. And then whenever, like, I finally got rid of the old trash and we were about to load the new trash can, like, these trash bags were covered in maggots, which I didn't really understand the concept of a maggot at first, but essentially it's just like a baby fly, and flies have been like awful this year here in Charleston at least. Went to Walmart a few weeks ago and got all kinds of fly traps, and so yes, as soon as that trash got away, put the maggoty bags This is gross. In the trash can, stash that in the backyard. Flies were swarming around that. So what I did is I took one of these little house-shaped fly traps with like the sticky paper in it, and like I jammed a piece of fruit in there. And literally, I came out there the next day, and there was like not a spot on this sticky pad that didn't have a little buzzing fly on it. So yeah, it's pretty gross this summer in terms of pests. But yeah, getting through
That
it.
sounds fun. Yeah, we've got fruit flies real
Oh yeah.
bad this year up here, and like we don't have any fruit or anything out, like,
Hmm.
and it's just like when I first moved in here, the first summer we had in this apartment, we had them real bad, and then like last year we didn't have them at all, and then this year they're back, and I don't know what the hell it is. So
Yeah, last year, gnats and fruit flies were a lot worse, and a lot of times what I would do was I would like you take a little bit of like vinegar and you mix some detergent in there and put like a piece of fruit in there, and then they get like caught in the little liquid thing. Caught quite a few of them that way, but yeah, the sticky pads are pretty good. One time I had stored a bunch of bird food in the garage, and there's like all these moths, and I bought some moth pads, and I trapped them in a couple days. So yeah, the things you learn when you start living on your own. Yeah, and South Carolina is a big hotbed for COVID again. I guess we're like one of the highest in the nation. Like my
we're like if we were a country, we'd be the third highest country in the world.
so
At least we're not Florida, but there's that. We're not Florida.
no end in sight here with COVID, and then back to school is like right around the corner. So how's that going to work? And I mean, I don't like to complain about it, but it's getting a little weird. It's going on a long, long time.
Yeah, and there's so many other like countries that we could probably follow their examples, and we could have been done with this or be on the downswing instead of still probably on the upswing, and it's real sad. So
But on a more humorous note, after all that craziness, so the movie I watched, because I was on vacation this time last year, and I looked back in my like my letterbox diary, and I saw that I had watched Butt Crack last year, which that leads it, which was the first trauma film I ever watched. You can actually watch this thing on YouTube. It's pretty doggone ridiculous. But that leads us into tonight's movie pick'em game. So Joey, I looked back at what you were watching this time last year, and you rated both of these films about the same. I think 4 stars is what you rated them. But
interesting.
tonight, if you had a choice between Alien and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, what would you check out?
Alien.
Oh yeah?
Alien. Yeah, I like that movie way more than Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
That's surprising.
Yes, and as much as I love martial arts movies and Asian movies and all of that, the wire fu turns me off real hard.
Oh.
The movie is really good, and it has it's very beautiful and is very technically sound, but the wire fu just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, Alien's a very slow, atmospheric movie. So, interesting to hear that you go that direction.
Yeah, my roommate thought that I would like Aliens more than Alien, and no, I think Alien is a much better movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like them both, but I definitely prefer Aliens. But interesting. All right, let's talk more about some of the movies we've been watching lately. And Joy's actually been watching a few lately, so let's get into our good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, so I have the timely, the shorty but a goodie, and an all-time banger.
I have generic, horny, and still funny.
All right, what's your horny movie?
All right, so this was one of my blind buys on when I went ham on the Arrow sale a few months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's called All Ladies Do It. Now, to be fair, like I knew it was going to be kind of a sexual movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at the cover and girl sitting there and her butt's out, and I read the
Yeah,
description,
it's
and
very eye-catching.
yeah, and you read the description, and it sounds like it's supposed to be kind of like this movie of, I guess, from what I remember, it was supposed to be like female empowerment. Like it seemed like her husband was like didn't want to do anything, and she just needed to go out and like sow some wild oats maybe, or like explore her sexual nature kind of thing. And then you get into the movie and it's like, well, that sounds like what it is, but it's about a woman and is being told by a man. And boy howdy, like I said in my letterbox description, this is the horniest movie I've ever seen. I've watched porno less horny, like boy. And there is, we get everything but like insertion, and then there's even like points where they're watching and they're like watching porno on TV, and you see that, but no, you see homegirl, you see everything homegirl has got, and she's a gorgeous woman. Like she has a gorgeous smile, she's very good at being like flirtatious and charming, and it's like I wish she was in more movies. She was only in a few, and then she became like a missionary. Like I wish she was in more movies where she wasn't just here I'm naked and getting torn sideways like. But yeah, that's All Ladies Do It. You want to watch a movie from the Arrow collection and have that pretense there, that's the one.
It's only 2 stars, and it sounded pretty enjoyable to me.
Brother, like the plot is there's no plot. There's just a plot. There's no plot, brother. Like,
It's a glorified porn.
yes, that's it. Like, take what we used to watch on Cinemax, and like turn it up, because they didn't show below the waist, because they definitely show below the waist, and yeah, that's what you got.
Okay. Yeah, that one, and there's another cover on Letterboxd somewhere. I forget what it's called, but yeah, it's basically a naked woman on the cover, and it's always like, oh, maybe I should watch that one day. But yeah, typically the classic movies always go up to pique my attention.
Let's do your shorty but a goodie.
Okie dokie. What's that one called again? It's called A Nation's Pride. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
Okay, A Nation's Pride is the little movie that the Nazis are watching in the theater during Inglourious Bastards.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's about a 6. I think they just show a few frames of it in the actual Inglourious Bastards, but you can watch the whole thing on YouTube. It was directed by Eli Roth, but it definitely has QT's signatures all over this thing. And yeah, I mean, it has his signature, like really dark but funny humor. I mean, there's this this Nazi up in this bell tower up in Italy, and he's just gunning down Americans left and right, and like the bodies are like stacking up like crazy in the street. So you got that aspect. The whole floor of this tower is just covered with shells. You got that. It's actually really timely and one like of its main message, because like this one general's like, hey, do you want us to bomb the tower and knock this guy out? And he's like, no way, that tower's been there 1,000 years and I'm not standing in between, I'm not turning a piece of history into dust, at the sake of people's lives. So it's like, whoa, that kind of hits home with what's going on lately in politics and social spheres. So yeah, that this thing's just ridiculous. I mean, he like carves this like perfect swastika on the floor, and like some of the bullet holes on the outside of the tower are in the form of a swastika. It's totally ridiculous, but also very entertaining. It's only 6 minutes. If you like Inglourious Bastards, then that's a must watch.
Yeah, especially if it's only 6 minutes long. Like,
yeah, I definitely spent more time writing about it than I did watching it, which goes for most of the stuff, but moving on.
All right, so I have generic and still funny.
All right, let's just we can go generic and on a higher note.
All right, so that's Knockaround Guys. So I was just scrolling through my I don't even think it was my watch list. I was just scrolling through some movies on Netflix one night, and it was like, oh, here's this gangster movie, and it had Seth Green and Vin Diesel in it, and it's from like 2001, and so I was like, sure, I'll watch this. And it also had John Malkovich and our favorite person on this show, Daddy Wants to Fuck, Dennis Hopper. So I want to point out those last two actors were way too good for this movie, like way too good. I think because 2001 Vin Diesel still really wasn't Vin Diesel yet. Like I think he'd done one Fast and the Furious movie. Like he wasn't quite Vin Diesel yet, you know.
Yeah.
So boy, like, all right, so Vin Diesel, Seth Green, and two other guys, they're like the kids of gangsters. They're trying to prove themselves. They've been spoiled and sheltered their whole lives, except for Vin Diesel. He's the roughneck, he's the muscle. All the other guys are like rich, spoiled kids. They lose a fuck ton of money in like Montana, Idaho, somewhere, bringing it back from Washington. Well, Seth loses it, and then they all go out there and they try to find it, and then it's not very good. It's very generic. And then, you know, John Malkovich turns out to be the actual bad guy, and he betrays them, and blah 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 blah. And then the last two left, which was not Seth Green, it was one of the other ones, him and Vin Diesel, like they learn a life lesson, and he's like, I don't want to be in the family. And he tells that to Dennis Hopper, and he goes off to try to be a sports agent, and blah, 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 blah. It was not very good. It was just very generic, like, whatever. Like, yeah. I'm sure some people would like it. It didn't. I just was sitting there like, okay, cool. Yeah, whatever. So
it was just came up on Netflix? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was on Netflix, and I was just like, you know, scrolling through movies and, you know, looking for something to watch, and it was like, oh, here's a movie about gangsters. Oh, I'm gonna watch a gangster movie tomorrow or whatever. You know, sure, I'll watch this. Cool, because, you know, at that point I'd already read the description of the main feature of the night, and I was like, okay. We'll watch this into this tomorrow, and I was like, oh, this is not very good. This was very average.
Gotcha.
All right. So I
got timely and an all-time banger.
Oh, timely.
Okie dokie. So yeah, with the recent social unrest, I've been watching a couple Spike Lee movies. I started off with Bamboozled, and then I did Do the Right Thing, and I saw his new film, The Five Bloods, on Netflix. But the timely one I wanted to go with was Do the Right Thing, which feels like it pretty much could have been made yesterday with you know, everything that's gone on here in 2020 in terms of, you know, social injustices. Yeah, Do the Right Thing. Wow. Definitely want to be back in the conversation with this. I hadn't seen it since I was in high school, and watching back through it, like the big debate, like I think we had talked about this on before on the show, the big debate is, does Mookie do the right thing, more or less, by trashing this pizza parlor after his good friend gets killed by a cop? And watching back through it, I was like, I kind of felt the same way I did the first time, where I felt all this sympathy about this darn pizza place. And I'm like, well, that shouldn't be the case. I should feel more sympathy for the guy that got killed. And really kind of peeling back the layers of the film and watching all the way back through it, Spike is very manipulative on how throughout he layers on your sympathy, and then at the very last second he kind of changes directions on you, because the guy that gets killed in this movie, Radio Rahim, he's very much of this kind of unknown person, and so he really tests, like, are you going to directly just, stick with, or go to, like your sympathies to this person that is killed that maybe you don't know them? Have you attached yourself to them? Or are you going to stick with this thing you've been kind of led along with the entire time? So it's very interesting how Lee does that. It's a really, really kinetic film, I would say. I mean, it kind of washes over you, and you're like, oh, why exactly do I feel this way after experiencing that? And you watch back there, and it's very layered with each character having their different nuances. Basically, the plot is the fact that there's this character named Bugging Out, and they're all at their neighborhood pizza place called Sal's, famous pizzeria, and he has this wall of Italians on the wall, and Buggins Out is like, hey, you're part of our community, we should have famous black people or black people representation on the wall. Which, whenever I started thinking about that more, I mean, it's not just, you go into any pizza place in America, your chances are you're going to see a bunch of Italians on the wall, but having this conversation about representation, it's more than just this pizza place. It's black people's representation period in America kind of coming to the forefront with this conversation. It's definitely check out all the different Letterboxd reviews with people's opinions on it. There's so much to talk about with this, so I definitely if you haven't seen Do the Right Thing, definitely something you should watch, just to if nothing else, just kind of having more sympathy towards, the different, what minorities have to deal with. There's a lot there, a lot of difficult stuff to talk through. I spent, 2 days going through my review to making sure it was just right, how I wanted it worded, because, it's very sensitive topics. So Do the Right Thing. It's a Criterion. It's a masterpiece. Check it out. All right, so that leaves Still Funny, right?
Yes, still funny. And I guess that's not. I couldn't quite get it the way I wanted, like the wording I wanted. It's not still funny as in I've seen it before and it's still funny. It's still funny because it's a sequel. And that's Jumanji: The Next Level.
This was you have you seen it before?
I'd not seen it before, but that's what I was saying. Like I shouldn't have put still funny. Like I should have worded it differently. But I guess it was still funny as in.
Also funny?
Also funny, or it's still funny, almost as funny as the first one kind of thing.
Okay.
I didn't think it was quite as good as the first one, but barely.
Neither did I.
Okay. But I thought the two Dannys added a lot to the movie, both Glover and Penguin, not Danny
DeVito.
Penguin. Danny DeVito, there we go.
Danny Penguin.
He's the Penguin, damn it. So I thought they added a lot. Part of the reason it wasn't as funny is you didn't have Jack Black teaching Karen Gillan how to be hot. Okay, that's you don't have that scene, and that scene
right.
made.
Oh, I was so bummed that whenever she does have her breakdancing fight, it's the same song. I'm like, they couldn't have given us a new song to do that too. I don't know.
But
I was a little underwhelmed by this one.
Was still really good. And it was still really funny. They had to switch up where they were all different characters, and when Danny DeVito's The Rock and he's smoldering at the wrong time, and just smoldering all the time and just killing people and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of just basically the same formula. It's changed up a little bit. It makes for a good movie. So I was impressed with it. I'm glad I watched it. And they set up for another one, so right. I watch that one too when it comes out in a year or two. Assuming they start filming movies again. So,
right.
But yeah, Jumanji: The Next Level was a good time.
I liked how they were able to switch back and forth with the characters, but man, that flying horse thing, I was just like, really? I think they kind of jumped the shark with the flying horse.
I mean, yeah, it was it's gonna be. I thought that Danny Glover's character when he became the horse was gonna sacrifice himself in some way as opposed to staying behind, but whatever. It's still that pulling on your heartstrings kind of thing that they were shooting for there. So
yeah, all right.
All right, so you have an all-time banger. What banger and mash do you got for us today, my friend?
All right, so you guys know I've been, watching back through all the Scorsese's, what I've seen, stuff I hadn't seen in a long, long time, and I've had this Blu-ray of Taxi Driver sitting there waiting for me to finally watch it again, and wow, Taxi Driver. Robert De Niro. You got, Scorsese. The writer escapes my mind. What is the writer of Taxi Driver? I'll know in seconds.
I don't, off the top of my head, I could not tell you.
Paul Schrader. And
Paul Schrader, like the Paul Schrader? No, that's Paul Schaefer I'm thinking of. So never mind. But okay.
Paul Schrader was a famous movie critic who turned into a screenwriter, and he's directed a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, Travis Bickle. Gosh, this movie, so stylish, so 70s. It's interesting. My overall takeaway was like, man, as great and as deep as this movie is, it kind of just washes over me, and it doesn't really pull me in, like emotionally. But I mean, I appreciate so much about it, but I don't love it. It's kind of a conundrum I have. He's such a. I mean, you've seen Taxi Driver, right? Oh, you saw it just the last 2 years or so, right?
Yeah, I saw it in like March or April of 2018. It was I think the first movie when I was doing my countdown to 1,000. So it was in that list. So
yeah, it's such an interesting character study of this guy who like complains so much about seeing like the filth on the streets driving his cab every night, but yet he drives the streets almost like constantly. It's like somebody that's obsessed with what they hate, and then he like manufactures that into like racism, misogyny, and violence. One thing I really noticed was like Scorsese has a cameo in this thing where he's like in the back of the cab and he's talking about like all these different topics like racism. Well, he's being racist, he's being misogynistic against his wife, and he's talking about violence. And I kind of like at first when I was watching that scene through, I'm like, oh, man, I wonder if Scorsese like regrets this scene because he's being a real twat in it. But yeah, all these are aspects of like what brings out the worst in Travis, and so it's almost like an alter ego in a way if you want to think about it really deeply. Again, it's one of those, I spent a lot of time writing about this one on Letterboxd. Had a lot of interesting follow-up conversations. A few shout-outs to my Letterboxd friends. Max Rothman had a really good insight about how Travis Bickle almost represents like this former like Western kind of persona that's now in like a city landscape. And another one of my friends on there, Rasmus, followed up with some insights they had as well, and then we even have a little debate about is he not dead at the end. So yeah, it's really cool to get connected on Letterboxd with a bunch of high thinking people about a movie like this where you can really dig your hands into. We could have a whole show on Taxi Driver, so I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Nice. Also, a good little bit of a tie into the main feature because I'm pretty sure Gomorrah was a Martin Scorsese Presents movie. I'm pretty sure I saw that at the beginning. So we have a Martin Scorsese Presents and a Quentin Tarantino Presents movie.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Now to our featured movies this week. We are talking about a couple Criterions that we know nothing about. But since we're on the topic of Criterion, we'll dust that old box off again. And do a little Criterion talk. I know it's the Criterion episode, comes with the territory, right?
That is correct.
Okie dokie. So, how did you become aware of the old Criterions, Joey?
I'm pretty sure that it was either through Letterboxd. I'm also pretty sure Carl has a bunch of them. And it was him that explained it to me. Mm-hmm. And then I went out and purchased one. And then I found out that I had already had one when I purchased that first one. So, and I was like, oh, well, I've had this for years. I just didn't know it. So the first one that I had for years was Chasing Amy. Because because I was a big Kevin Smith fan, and so of course it had like a little bit nicer case, and said like collector's edition or something on it. So even back then, I wanted the nicer, fancier cases and that kind of thing, but I didn't know what Criterion was or anything like that. But then the first one I went out to buy specifically because it was a Criterion was Lady Snowblood.
Nice.
Because gotta then that's what started my quest to find like not only like fancy copies of Quentin Tarantino movies, and specifically Kill Bill more so than the rest, but anything that like inspired Kill Bill, and different Quentin movies as well, but specifically Kill Bill. That's what started that. So it's all history from there.
All right. Yeah, a few years ago I had started listening to a lot of different YouTubers online talk about movies, Razor Wire Reviews, Daisuke Beppu, and yeah, this term Criterion kept coming up and up and up, and I looked over at my shelf and was like, hey, I got that Fear and Loathing disc over there. Hey, that's a Criterion. And then, yeah, I mean, there's so many like Criterion Hall videos online that I'm always watching. There's a lot of buzz about it on Letterboxd and stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. My first time actually going into a Barnes & Noble and tracking one down and be the first one I knew like what I was buying was being John Malkovich, and I think I got about 50 or so now. Hopefully I can, the closest Barnes & Noble to me shut down, but hopefully I'll go to the one the next town over and pick up a few new titles. But yeah, some real exciting Criterion news. I really enjoyed watching Bong Joon-ho, I believe his name is, the director. Parasite, Best Picture, Best Director, swept the Oscars with this movie. And it's coming to Criterion. Real excited about that. And they just released what the packaging is going to look like, what all the special features are. The special features are going to include the black and white version of the film, which I'm looking forward to. Have you actually seen the front of the case yet?
Yeah, I saw it somewhere come across my feed earlier today. But they've gotten a couple of like bigger movies the last couple of years actually, that I really should pick up, that I just haven't seen yet. But between Parasite, Irishman, Marriage Story, Roma, like all of these I need to watch.
Marriage Story's been announced, but Irishman hasn't been announced yet. I mean, like Netflix.
I thought it was announced.
Netflix said that that Criterion's getting it, but Criterion hasn't said when it's coming out yet.
Oh, okay. Well, that's my fault.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I was kind of put off by the front cover at first. It's like it shows like the traditional poster for Parasite, but then there's like this white over it with like these like circles or whatever. And then somebody on the Criterion Considered Facebook page is like, "That's brilliant. That's Morse code saying Parasite." I was like, oh, that's cool. And once you see the movie, you'll see the brilliance the Morse code has into like the significance of the story. So, yep, can't wait to get that eventually and watch it for the second time. I was blown away the first time I watched Parasite, and was really happy when it won the Best Picture. So we came up with a little game since this week is all about Criterions we knew nothing about. We figured we would shout out a few of our favorite, maybe lesser knowns. I mean, depending on what movie spheres you're in. I mean, if you're a huge Malick fan, you're definitely going to heard of My First One. But these are ones that I generally don't hear a lot of people talking about that I really enjoyed. So, what's your number 5, Joey?
Well, I didn't really put them in any order. I just kind of wrote them down. But
that's fine.
None of these I heard of until I started doing Criterions. So we'll do the Lone Wolf and Cub collection, which was the second one that I bought. So I guess it's like 7 movies. But one of the movies that might be more known to people in that is the movie in the supplements called Shogun Assassin, where if you listen to Wu-Tang Clan or if you are familiar with Kill Bill 2, it is referenced in both of those movies, which is the American version of the first 2 movies where they kind of splice it together and dub over it to form one movie. But it is what BB and Beatrix watch at the end of or near the end of Kill Bill 2.
Oh, and big Kill Bill news recently, right? That you're excited about.
Potentially, where Vivica Fox wants Zendaya to be her daughter if they make Kill Bill Kill Bill 3, whatever they decide to call it, Kill Beatrix or something of that nature. Yeah, and what could be really cool is now that her daughter's old enough, she could be BB. That would be the really cool part, especially now that she's an actual good actress. So,
right on. My first one, it's an early Criterion. It's called Alexander Nevsky. It's a Russian film. I kind of came into this thinking it was going to be real kind of old-fashioned looking, but man, I mean, on the Criterion channel, this thing looked very, very bright and vivid and has some amazing like medieval war scenes in it. I was very impressed. I mean, I like Russian stuff in general, but yeah, this is a pretty awesome medieval Russian war film. It's funny, whenever you look at the letterbox reviews for it, most people are just like, oh, it was Russian propaganda during World War II, and that might be so, but I mean, a lot of war movies is propaganda, so whatever.
Yeah, actually, I feel like most war movies are some form of propaganda or nationalism. So
yeah. All right, what's your next one?
I'm gonna go with The Killing, which you mentioned earlier, I do believe. So this is another movie I'd never really heard of, and boy, this is definitely my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie by a lot. By a lot.
You make my body hurt every time I hear that. You make my soul cry. But moving on.
That's fine. At least I like Kubrick movies, Justin. Some of them.
A Kubrick movie.
No, I like this one, and I like hold on, my mind's blanking. I'm sitting there. I own the movie.
Dr. Strangelove?
Dr. Strangelove was pretty good. Yeah, I would say that I liked that one. I was actually not Platoon, but the
Full Metal Jacket's good, yeah.
Yeah, Full Metal.
You like The Shining.
And I did like The Shining. Not as much as the book, because it's not a straight adaptation of the book, but whatever.
I didn't realize you read the book.
Yeah, no, I was big into King in high school, like really big.
Yeah, I read the book as well. Anyways.
Yeah. Anywho, but yeah, it's just a really good, like, basically heist movie. So.
Actually, I think The Killing I had mentioned before the podcast, and that was one of the movies. Along with being John Malkovich, I picked up a DVD copy of The Killing, which looks pretty good. I didn't realize they had a Blu-ray, but yeah, the DVD of The Killing looks pretty great. And they also have that Killer's Kiss in that set, which I've yet to watch. Shame on me.
Yeah, no, it looked really good on Blue, and it's Carl has that one. Is how I've watched it, and it's just like I have a list of ones I want to get, and it's always in there, and they just keep adding more, and one day I'll have it for myself and on my side.
Nice. A movie I was very pleasant to see that it was on the Criterion Collection. Broadcast News. I used to work in broadcasting, so this one's near and dear to my heart. When I was studying it in college, I went to a conference and they showed a few scenes of it. Yeah, maybe one day we'll watch. We'll watch. Pull this one out for the show. But yeah, Broadcast News. It's definitely check it out. It's a really, really great. A lot of people think about it as a romance, but really it's depiction of like broadcasting and how what life and that profession is like is really captured really well there with a lot of memorable moments. Broadcast News.
All right. The next one for me is by one of the most beloved directors on the collection, actually, but
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa? Yeah, it is by Kurosawa.
Okay.
But it strays from his general what you think about when you think of Kurosawa, samurai movies. It strays from that. It is high and low. Look at you. But it's just so good, and it's black and white except for the one part where he throws that pink smoke up, and it's Kurosawa and wow, why am I having so much trouble tonight?
Toshiro Mifune?
Yeah. and it's just a powerhouse of a movie. And like, if you haven't seen it, like, please just stop listening to us and go watch it. Shit, it's so good. It's like in my top 10 movies for this year. I just, it's so good. Like, and I wish I had heard of it sooner. I wish I had seen it sooner. Like, it's one of the reasons I purchased it when I went out and bought movies this year when I was only buying a few. Like, that's why I bought it. It is ridiculously good. Like, I can't say enough good things about it.
Awesome. It's kind of ironic. My next one is a Kurosawa as well. Unfortunately, this was a Kurosawa Laserdisc back in the day. It's the film Dersu Alazala. It was one of his later films. He got it made up in Russia. It tells a really, really good story about this like Russian kind of military leader explorer who's like exploring the Siberian, and he runs into this little guy named Dersu, and they develop a lifelong friendship. If you watch it, you're like, I think this Dersu guy might be an influence on George Lucas for a little character he made. So little props to, if you're a Yoda fan, I definitely recommend you check out Dersu Ozala. It's on the channel. One of my favorite Kurosawas, very underknown.
Nice. I'll take that into consideration. As I just every time I watch one of his movies, I just fall more and more in love with him. So
it's like, we got this Vin Diesel movie or Dersu Ozala. Got to go with the Vin Diesel.
I mean, sometimes you want to watch something that doesn't require your brain to work.
True. We had talked about that a few shows ago. I was like, John Hughes, come and make my life happier. So. All right, what's next?
Yeah. So this one's probably the one that is the most well known on my list. But we've talked about this last season, compared it to like another movie. But is Blue is the Warmest Color?
Okay.
It's an absolute masterpiece of a movie. And I think people probably know it just because I guess there was some controversy of some of the subject matter, and maybe because of the director. I think there was some controversy with him as well. But
yeah.
I have a feeling maybe, just people who watch maybe regular movies or just only like U.S. releases probably don't know anything about it, and you definitely should watch it. It's a great coming of age story, a great love story between these two women, or young women, girls, whatever, and it's just like me and you said, it's just a masterpiece. Yeah, some of it's very explicit. They show some graphic stuff, but it's just fantastic. And I think like if you're into that kind of, those kind of movies with people growing up and living life, then you should definitely do yourself a favor and watch it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Blue, a lot of times people will be like, oh, what's the sexiest Criterion? And, someone will be like, oh, Blue is the Warmest Color. And they're like, oh, but it's downright pornography and stuff. And I think often it'll get like written off for its explicitity, but like you said, it's a very beautiful film. I was blown away by it. All right, my number 2, I'm gonna go with one of my Lars von Trier films. My favorite from him, Breaking the Waves. I remember this was on my radar for the longest time, and then one day on Letterboxd, somebody's just like, "Man, you need to watch that movie. It'll change your life." And it really knocked my socks off. It's basically the story of this. She's kind of a slow lady, and she marries this guy, and the guy gets disabled. And Lars, he likes to be very perverse in his movies. And so it brings up the concept of being faithful to your husband, and the fact that he wants to, since he's paralyzed, he can't have sex with her anymore. And so he wants her to go out and have sex with other people and to hear about it. So he's kind of a pervert in that way. And in her being so devoted to God, like she goes through with it, and how far will she take this? And it's a very, Lars is perverse, but man, this there's something about that movie that it just blew me away. So Breaking the Waves.
Okay, yeah. It brings up, not having seen the movie, but you've talked about this movie before, but it's like, if you're paralyzed and you have no way to, you still love your wife, you don't want her to leave you, but you want her to, be able to fulfill that part of her life, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And then you also have your needs that you still at least mentally have. It it raises some questions, and I guess that's what it tries to explore. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that's a lot there just in the description you gave.
Yeah. So,
So,
I mean, you've seen Dancer in the Dark and Dogville, so you know how he does. But yeah, this man, especially the ending of that movie. Gosh, I got over on my shelf. One of these days, I'm going to rewatch it. It's about 2.5 hours, so it's a little bit of a time commitment. But most of these movies
and
are.
and I've seen Nymphomaniac, so
Right.
which I liked. The other two movies, not so much. But
Nymphomania. That's an odd one to be like. I liked Nymphomaniac. That movie's crazy.
I watched it randomly one day on Netflix many years ago. What do you want from me?
Oh goodness.
The random Netflix. So,
All right. What's your last one?
actually, it's one we watched in the first episode of this season, and that's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
All right.
And I feel like a lot of people probably don't know about this movie. One, it's foreign. Two, it's a musical, and like a traditional musical where every lyric or every line is sung as a song lyric. And I feel like with how popular La La Land was a few years ago, and winning a Golden Globe, and then winning an Oscar, that with how much it influenced that movie and as popular as that movie seems to be, like if you like that movie or musicals in general, like this is, you owe it to yourself with how beautiful the colors, like it's one of the most vibrantly colorful movies I've seen, period. And then how enriched, like detailed they, I don't know, how much they put into the love story and everything that goes along with that story and what they do with it. You just feel like you owe it to yourself to check it out. I think it is on the channel, but I think there's 2 copies of this movie in that house, in this house now. That should tell you something. So,
Yeah, I recall watching it. I think it was on the Criterion channel when I saw it. Yeah, check back the first episode of the season. Yeah, we definitely talked that one up. Very delightful, bittersweet love story there. All right, my last one. And so, a long time ago, I watched my first Malick film, Thin Red Line, and I did not enjoy it at all just because I was expecting, like, Saving Private Ryan. But no, Malick is a much more, like, intellectual, like, spiritual director. And watched a couple of his films and finally started getting into his lane of kind of what he's all about. And then I watched his version of the Pocahontas story, which is The Brave New World. And yeah, blew my socks off with how spiritual it was, with taking a perspective of the Native Americans' viewpoint of like spirituality. And you have the John Smith, the Pocahontas story. There's a great battle in the middle there. Real long movie, but man, so beautiful. It's the point where I was like, if I'm gonna watch a Malick film, I need to watch it with subtitles, because he has all these like whispering voiceover narrative stuff going on, and to really capture the full what he's going for, it's good to have the subtitles on for that. And yeah, Brave New World. No, The New World is what it is. Yeah, need to rewatch some of these Malick things. It was interesting. Next season, you have Song of Songs, I think, on your one of your lists, which is a Malick. I definitely recommend that not be your first Malick. But yeah, we'll revisit this topic at some point. But yeah, I need to. Shoot, he even has a new movie out. I think The Hidden Life or something. Yeah, I need to track that down and see some more Malick, because a few years ago I was like, I'm going to watch all Malick's films, and then I watched a couple, and then I didn't watch. It's kind of the thing where you have to be in a mood for, because it's a lot of like pretty shots and floating around camera and hearing what people are thinking about certain topics. Yeah, Malick's one of a kind.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right, let's get into our feature movies of the night. So our first one up here is Gomorrah, which is Criterion Spine number 493. So the reason I picked this one is I would always be walking through Barnes & Noble, and I would see like this cover with this dude in his underwear. He's real skinny, walking around with a gun, and he just looks totally enormous. And I was like, what on earth is that movie about? And so I thought that perfectly fit into our, Criterions we knew nothing about category. So I finally wanted to check it out. And then you heard us on the last show. It was like, oh, it's about gangsters. Yeah, this should be fun. And that I would say that Criterion cover definitely matches the mentality of this character with thinking he is larger than life. Gomorrah it's a large cast movie with multiple stories, 5 of them altogether, and they all have different, they're approaching the topic of the Gomorrah crime syndicate in Naples. So you have kids involved, you have teenagers on the outside, you have people that work for the organization, people that get contracted for the organization. I mean, this organization's everywhere. And if you look there closely, I mean, the name of the movie is called Gomorrah, but the syndicate is called the Gomorrah. So basically, he's like hinting at the fact that this organization is so evil that it's just like Sodom and Gomorrah, the biblical cities that God destroyed because they were so evil. The movie is super, super detached. Has a gritty feel, almost like a documentary. And while some of the stories were a little hard to follow, I felt very connected with the thing, like the narrative throughout, and I was enjoying it. So Joey, what were your first impressions? I know you had mentioned earlier in the show that Marty Scorsese's name pops up right there at the front. What were some of your first thoughts, and seeing Marty up at the top like that?
Well, I saw the Martin Scorsese Presents, and I'm like, all right, well, it's an Italian movie. It's kind of about gangsters, that all of that seemed to make sense, be in line. He makes a lot of gangster movies, etc. So that all seemed to fit the bill.
Lost for words. It was that wonderful. It was almost as good as that Vin Diesel movie.
I mean, to be fair, I rated the Vin Diesel movie higher than this movie.
Wow.
By like half a star. Now, this is a better movie than that movie, but a Vin Diesel movie I could follow. They had character names. There wasn't 5 storylines with 1 million people in like 7 places and no character names. Like, who the fuck were the characters? What the fuck were their names? What the fuck was going on? I don't know.
You don't remember You don't remember Sweet Pea? Toto?
Are we in Kansas? Are we in fucking Riverdale? Like what? No.
Riverdale. Okay. All right, I'll jump in.
Oh man. So no, like I know there was the kid at the beginning who was like taking the groceries and delivering the groceries, and he wanted into the syndicate and all of that. But like, nah, man, like it did not do much for me to say the least.
Okay. Now, I take it you haven't read or listened to anything about it ever since you've watched, I'm assuming?
No.
Okay.
And because if I had read anything or listened to anything, I think I would have died because the movie almost killed me. And that's a little hyperbolic, but like I was like shooting coke. I was snorting lines of coke to stay awake during this movie, and it still didn't work.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so I'll break it down. You can jump in as you want. So I thought was really interesting about it is a very quiet kind of slow-paced film, but there's also like these like sudden bursts of violence throughout it. I mean, that did something for you, right? I mean, right off the bat, you got this really cool looking like neon blue tanning bed, and guys are kind of just doing their own thing, and all of a sudden, people start getting shot up. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty mobster.
I mean, until you said that, I had forgot that had happened. But yes, it's like,
the
all right,
opening scene.
These guys are getting tanned. All right, they're they're getting tanned, and then they just randomly get shot, and it doesn't connect to anything.
All
It
right,
doesn't.
I'm
It,
convinced that if a movie has any reference of Scarface in it, you immediately hate it. I think that's the rule of thumb we've
the
come to
one,
here.
the references to
Lahane
Scarface, the
has a
references to
Scarface in there.
Scarface at
Hate it.
least made sense because they grew up watching Scarface and thought they were gangsters and thought they were badass. Like at least that made sense. It
All right.
made.
All right. So yeah, this whole like mob hit at the tanning salon, it essentially triggers like this war between two factions, but you don't really. I mean, if I would have really had to pour through the movie to kind of figure out who is who in terms of that. It's mostly about the characters that we come to see, and from what I mean, you can definitely tell that this is not glamorizing like the violence of like Goodfellas or Godfather. It's kind of like the anti-gangster movie of saying like, it really sucks to be living in like the slums and like you have to work for these people or else, you get killed yourself or what have you. So it's definitely de-glamorizing. And I've seen more of these anti-gangster movies lately. I saw Mickey and Nicky a few months ago, I think, and that kind of had the same vibe too. Of it's definitely not making these guys look like awesome people. It's making them look like total assholes in what they do. So what are your thoughts on this being kind of more of a harsher look at the gangster genre compared to like Goodfellas, Godfather, Sopranos? I know we both love all that stuff, so see any correlation or how it kind of goes against that?
I mean, okay, it's definitely a much different. It definitely portrays the gangster life in Italy to be much different than how it's portrayed in like American gangster movies or gangster TV shows, like you said, like Sopranos, where it's you're doing you're doing a lot of gangster shit in the kitchen, but you're also you live in a big house, you're driving Tahoes or Cadillacs, and you got fancy watches and what have you. You're basically living it up, especially once you make it past being a soldier. Once you're higher up, kind of deal. But yeah, no, definitely in this movie, it's basically just scraping by. It's what you got to do, kind of thing, and it's
At least for these lower level people, because the organization. So I mean, we don't see anybody at like the top of the organization that is seeing all the money of these hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of euros of drugs that they're selling all the time, and all the investments. So we never see that level. It's more like we're seeing kind of the grunts and the wannabes throughout this film. Do you remember that episode of The Sopranos where they actually go to Italy and like all the guys, like they all have this like romanticized version of what it's going to be back in like the old country, and they get there and they're disappointed that like the Don is like a woman, and they're just not happy with like what they do over there. You remember that episode at all?
Yeah. Because I remember, because like they tried to make it be something between her and Tony was like, nah, I don't shit where I eat, kind of thing. And
I do remember that line. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so let's. I think the best way of tackling this is just to go through each of the stories, and we had talked about not Dersu Zala, Dedeskadin last season, about a year ago actually, and that was also a multi-character, multi-story story. Several storylines within the movie. The one interesting thing here is like they never connect in the traditional sense. Like you'll watch like a Love Actually or like an Altman film, like Shortcuts, and eventually like they cross paths, but there's no crossing paths. The only connection is the fact that they life in this area of Naples is all about the syndicate. But yeah, let's go through some of the characters here. Maybe brush off Joey's memory, and maybe he'll appreciate something. I can only see his opinion coming up from here. I think it's about rock bottom as we speak. So if you've seen any images of this film, you'll be familiar with who Marco and Cirso, Sweet Pea, So there are these two guys, and they're basically the big wannabes of the film. They're probably in their 20s, very, very skinny. And yeah, they think they're total badasses. I think we first see them, and they're just kind of walking through this. I think it's like a building under construction or whatever, because the one sits in like the bathtub, and he's talking like he's Tony Montana. They totally idolize Scarface, and I thought these were by far the two most interesting characters in the film, because they're kind of living like the wannabe fantasy gangster lifestyle. Everything seems to work out for them. Like they go to this like drug deal, and they pull out their guns and they take all the coke and they storm off and they get away with it, and it seems like everything goes their way until it doesn't later. But yeah, I think the reason these are framed as like the two principal characters is like this glamorized idea of what gangsterism. These guys think that they're achieving it, and at the end of the day, they just end up in a ditch. Let's see here. I don't know what it is about them being in their underwear. I thought it was pretty cool. He had the one guy had the grenade launcher on it, and he just launches a grenade across the river or whatever, and it just hits this random boat and blows up. That was pretty sweet. And they're always talking about, oh, I'm gonna take out the Colombians, and so they're like totally like pretending they're in Scarface, which it's like 20 years old. I think you could. I think we're a little over fantasies at this point, but these guys seem to be locked in one.
I mean, yeah, no, these guys were the ones that actually had some sort of story. And it's a sad story, and it's a dumb story. And I don't mean dumb as their story is dumb, but they're fucking dumb, because it's like, yeah, we're gonna go rob the mob. We're gonna go rob these drug dealers, and it's like, guys, you're asking to die. Like, you go and rob just a gun cache from the mafia or the Gomorrah, whatever. Like, do you want to die? And then they take them and they're like, hey, stop doing this. If you do it again, we're gonna kill you. Like, in plain English, or I guess in Italian, whatever. And and they keep fucking with them, and then they're like, hey, man, which granted at this point, this was too late. This was part of the trap. We're like, come work for us. And they're like, nah, we don't like to be told what to do. We'll do whatever. And they're like, just do this job for us. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Well, I kind of was believing him, because the guy you're talking about, he's the one that has a tracheotomy. So he has to like put his finger over his when he shows up to the bar or whatever that they're at, and he's just like, do you guys want a cigarette? And he's like, no, we don't smoke. A little irony there with a guy with a trach, seeing if people want to smoke. But he was kind of sticking up for him during that one meeting. So I thought there might have been a chance that, but he's very clever. He's just like, man, you guys have the biggest balls. I admire you so much. I need a favor. And just throws this shit ton of money at him. And they're like, yeah, we'll do a favor for you. Before we get too far. Okay.
I would like to specify that you said a shit ton of money. It was like 10 grand or 10,000 euros. So like, it's not a shit ton, not enough money to go perform a hit. I guess to those guys it was, because they're broke as fuck. But like, you're gonna go murder somebody, you're gonna perform a hit for 10 grand. Let me put it to you, you're gonna risk life in prison or being killed yourself for 10K. Like, I'm gonna put it. I'm not.
I hadn't looked at the Hitman prices lately, so I'm not really sure what to say about that. But I'll take your word for it.
I mean, I don't know if that's the going rate, but I'm going to tell you, it's not worth it to me.
All right, so
that's all I'm getting at.
So if you're a listener of the show, you know that I like pretty forests in movies, and this movie's got a pretty forest. They go to like a pine forest. And these dummies, they buried some guns and they don't know where they are. So they're like, "Where'd you hide them? I don't know." Kind of reminded me of Fargo with Steve Buscemi hiding the crate of money in this huge field of snow or whatever. But yeah, they can't find it. Finally, they find the guns, and yeah, they get seduced by this mobster who wants them to do a hit. They're sneaking around, acting like they're James Bond, and then all of a sudden, like, they get ambushed, they get gunned down, and the goons and the what's that clothing called? They're like sports suit or not sports suits. They're
Track suits.
Yeah, track suits with like the dangly jewelry or whatever. They load them up in a back loader and wheels off, and that's the end of it. That's the end of their sad delusional story. So those are our main characters. It's a real happy show here. All right.
And that's the movie, folks. We can move on, but we're not.
No, we got to talk about the rest of these guys. We got a movie to talk about here. All right. So the next person I thought was the most interesting was Toto. He's the little kid. So he's basically he delivers groceries around this really. It's a very slummy apartment complex, but at the same time, it kind of has real kind of some cool architecture to it. And then one day, like, he sees like some mobsters, or I think they're doing some kind of drug run, and I think they get busted by the cops, and so they drop the drugs, and so he shimmies his way up to where that took place, and he like delivers it to them. And so like, all right, kid, you want in? So they have this initiation process where they make him wear this bulletproof vest, and they shoot him and let him in, and yeah, they say, "Oh, you're a real man. You took the bullet or whatever." And like in the next, a little later on in the mirror, he's like marveling at his little bruised bullet on his chest, kind of like if you're like in a fraternity and you got a brand or whatever, like you're one of the team now. One of those kind of initiation rituals. Do you recall like some of the cool like new age electronic music that they play periodically throughout this thing?
Not particularly, no.
All right. There's a scene I enjoyed where they're jamming to some tunes. They're like making kissy faces at some girls over at like a market or whatever. And I think
I remember, but I don't remember the music.
Okay. I think it's the boy's mother who like snatches him out of the car and's like, "What are you doing with them? You get over here right this second, mister." They have a pet monkey. I thought that was pretty fun. And that's pretty much all there is with Toto's story. Just this young boy who he wants to be one of the guys. Yeah.
He gets one of his neighbors killed. Like for some reason he lures her out. It's the lady he delivers groceries to. He lures her out and they shoot her in the back of the head. I don't remember why, but he does.
Yeah, I think there's that whole like factions. I do remember that now. And yeah, man, the violence in this movie, it's just so quiet for so long, and then in your face, very intense, like almost frightening. So you really kind of sinks in whenever it does happen.
Yeah, because he didn't want to do it because but they're like, if you don't, it's them or us, and if you don't do this, we're going to kill you. You don't, and so he had to, but I don't remember why they wanted to kill this lady who he just delivered groceries to. I guess she was the mother of like this other kid that he was friends with, but they were on the other side of the faction or something. So he just had her killed. He set her up and they killed her.
So the next interesting character I wanted to talk about was Don Cirio, which when I first hear Don, like I'm thinking he's like going to be like one of like the big bosses, but no, he's like totally like a middleman, like money courier kind of guy. So basically his job is to go around to all these families in this apartment complex and to give them money to make up for like their mafia family members being locked up. And as his story goes along, he gets more and more kind of stressed out about like his life being in danger. So at one point, like he starts wearing this bulletproof vest in order to help protect himself. He's almost as bad as a tax collector in the fact that like he'll give somebody some money and walk away. And he's like, "Oh, I don't have enough to live off of this. You get back here." And he just keeps his head down and keeps walking. So that's kind of his deal. And then at one point he goes to deliver some money and he gets held up by the other faction and they're like about to kill him. And he's like, no, 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 I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want. I'll even defect. And he's like, no, you don't matter. We want money. And so he helps them set up this plan to where, like, whenever he's like in this money transaction, like he tells them where it's going to happen and they ambush it. And man, they storm in and just blow everybody to shit. Steal the money, and he's just there kind of like quivering in fear of like, oh my god, what just happened, as he has like blood on his face. Yeah, he definitely had a real feel to him. He was definitely a guy who just kind of doing his job, doing what he had to do, but at a risk, because yeah, I mean, you have people from the other faction and they don't want the other people getting paid. So any thoughts on Don?
Yeah, I mean, he was just a dude walking around with money.
You didn't feel bad for him at all? I mean,
I'm pretty sure that by the time that happened, I was just like, okay, sure, whatever. Like, you just
okay. Like,
yeah, unfortunately, like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever.
All right.
Unfortunately.
All right. The next guy I want to talk about is Pascal. So it's one of the last two people. So he's a seamstress, and the garment factory that he works for has ties with Gomorrah, and he gets hired by the Chinese to come over. They smuggle him over to their factory in the trunk, and so he goes and trains their workers how to do it. And so the mob catches word of this somehow, and they don't like that none too much. Actually, I think some of my favorite conversations actually took place between Pascal and like his Chinese associate. Like they're talking. I think at one point he like goes to their apartment and he has some food and like, hey, we eat with chopstick. He's like, hey, can you make me some of those egg rolls, whatever. So there's some nice human connection between those two, and yeah, they stick them in the trunk and go take them over to the factory but ends up biting them in the ass because the mob finds out and they totally wreck them. What do they like? Run into their car, so like they fly into this whole like monuments kind of park deal. So yeah, they get all messed up, and I think all those people, all the Chinese people in the car died, but Pascal makes it out alive. Got anything on here before I move to the?
Like, okay, so I didn't pick up that he had ties to the mob. I knew he was a seamstress. And I saw the whole thing with ScarJo on the camera. Like, honestly, like, you could have just taken him out of the fucking movie. Like, you just did nothing at all. We didn't need him to show that they were brutal. Like, we already see all of that. Like, he just did nothing. Like, pointless thing in a movie that was already weaving an in very complex story. We could have taken that out, and it probably would have made it shorter. Probably would have made it better. Okay, that's what I have.
Okay, I mean, I really enjoyed the fact that he really took pride in his work, and then we get that little treat at the end where he just happens to look up at this red carpet and he sees that this dress he worked on that he was very proud of, Scarlett Johansson's wearing it on like a red carpet somewhere. So
now I didn't like him, but like he didn't. Like, I feel like they wanted to make this movie way more complex than it needed to be. And okay. He was the thing that did that. Like, you just didn't need him. Like, you could have taken him out. Honestly, probably could have taken Don Zero out, and we would have been a lot better off. We could have had Toto, and we could have had Sweet Pea and Homeboy, Marco, and like all of that, and you would have had a much, much, much better thing going on. Anywho.
Well, I mean, that's eliminating a lot of the people that are actually working, either in contract with them or affiliated or actually within it. So, I mean, I mean, 2 hours and 15 minutes, a little long, especially with
God, it was only 2 hours and 15 minutes. Holy shit! It felt like 100 years. Like, and I don't mean to sound, because the movie's not on a technical level. It's not a bad movie at all. But holy God, when you especially watching a foreign movie, and you're like, this guy's name was Pascal. I didn't know what the fuck his name was. I knew what none of these people's name was. Like, they hardly say their names. The subtitles, they don't say their names. They don't put their names up. It's like, I didn't know who any of these people were. Like, and then they're jumping back and forth. And I don't mind a movie jumping back and forth in a disjointed storyline, because I fucking watch Quentin Tarantino movies coming like out the ass. This movie it needed to either be in a more straightened arrow, or it needed to cut one of these storylines to make it a little more concise, and it would have been a lot better, in my opinion.
So you really need, like, because to me it sounds like you really need like an emotional like attachment with a character in order for it to really pull you in, where this is definitely keeping you at arm's length. I mean, I'm hearing that you felt that and it wasn't grooving with you too well.
Yeah, it was like, why I didn't care about any of the characters. Like, what was the point? Like, there was nothing. Like, and the two characters you were supposed to like, they were just dumb. They were just dumb.
I mean, did you appreciate how bleak the setting was? I mean, you can definitely tell they're living in a shithole, right?
I mean, yes, but like you could tell they were living in the slums. But like, you're supposed to at least give me something to be like, okay, these guys are living in the slums. They're gonna make it. They're gonna break out. Nope, no, they're just dumb.
No, there's not. It's Gomorrah. I mean,
you're supposed to give me some hope. They're gonna get out of there and then kill them. Give me some hope that they're gonna make it. Not that the whole movie, man. These guys are gonna fucking die. They're dumb.
I mean, yeah, you could definitely tell. Yeah, that Sweet Pea and what's his face? His luck was gonna run out.
Yeah,
Marco.
Okay.
All right, so the last one. This was the hardest one for me to follow. So you got Roberto, and he's into waste management, and him and his boss, they have these different contracts with these industrialists to dump this toxic waste, chromium and asbestos, basically in this quarry. And I think they also have agreements to dump it like in the countryside or whatever. One of the main parts, which I totally missed this whenever I was first watching this, there's a scene where like all their truck drivers that they're going to dump this stuff with, like one of them gets like injured, like I think some waste gets on them and they don't want to do the job. So then they hire some kids to do it instead. So they definitely have no morals there in terms of, getting kids to do their dirty work for them. Yeah, this one I definitely had to look back through the Wikipedia to actually piece this one together. There's the fact that they dump in the countryside. They go and see they're in kind of a village or whatever, and this old lady gives them some peaches, and the boss says, you gotta throw those peaches out. Those are contaminated or whatever because they've been, dumping these chemicals in these people's land. And so basically the end of Roberto's story is, he dumps these peaches off on the side of the road, and he's like, nah, this lifestyle's not for me. And, he walks off. And so despite getting like a shoot ton of money for, taking care of all this toxic waste for being part of the syndicate, this wasn't for him. So he walks away. So he definitely is the most in touch with his humanity out of any of them. I'm assuming that you wanted to cut this character as well.
Okay, so you could cut this. This was what, 15, 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes, whatever.
Give or take, I suppose.
It does literal nothing. It does literal nothing. It doesn't conjoin to any of the other storylines.
None of them do. That's what makes this one so unique.
The other ones, at least, we already know that they're shitty people. We don't need this. We don't need this at all.
This reminds me of our Dancer in the Dark episode where you're like, we already know that she's fucked. Let's end the movie. We don't need to see her more. We don't need to see her in misery.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who disagree with me who have seen this. Like, again, from a technical standpoint, this movie is fine. Like, it has a lot of great shots.
It's very well shot. One thing I noticed, there's a lot of, like, there'll be, like, two people talking and, like, their faces are, like, completely dark. Like, there's a lot of, like, overly dark stuff. I guess that's just to kind of match with the tone. But I was just like, I mean, I wish it would have been a little bit more lit up, but I think maybe that's just more of a realistic feel. I mean, it totally did. If you would, I mean, if there was like a narration like telling you exactly what was happening in each scene, I mean, this could have easily been a documentary. Um, I've said numerous times. I mean, it definitely has these bursts of violence, and it's all about making this Italian mob life just look awful. I really like the music at the end, where they're actually saying the facts about the actual, syndicate, how they make all this money on toxic waste, drugs, and, they have investments all around the world.
That was the best part of the movie. That was the best part. It did more in that 10 seconds where they gave us facts at the end in the credits than the whole 2 hours of the movie did. That was the best part.
All right. I mean, I admit that this is not a movie like, oh, do I want to watch Pulp Fiction, or do I want to watch Gomorrah? I think Gomorrah is more like you go there to kind of learn about a way of life. It's shitty. There's some entertaining aspects in terms of the violence. It's not supposed to be. I think I wrote something. I watched Platoon over the 4th of July, and I heard a quote from like Francois Truffaut, who said, there's no such thing as an anti-war movie, because any war movie is going to have some violence in it, and violence can be, enjoyed, fetishized, or whatever. So there are aspects of this film where there's like really intense violence, and for an action fan, that's what you're craving to see. Thinking back to Taxi Driver, I mean, in a way, Taxi Driver is an action film, because at the very end of that, he goes and blows away, this den of, this prostitution den or whatever. But up until that point, it's a very artsy, character-driven film. I mean, totally different thing. I'm just talking about the perspective of coming into a movie and, wanting a little action. I mean, I was raised on that. If I would have watched this movie with my dad, he'd been like, yeah, that was pretty depressing. I wish there had been more action in it. So yeah, it's just a different way of coming at a film. If you're coming in looking to like have an experience, or if you're coming in looking to be entertained, and I guess you had an experience and it was a bad one.
Yeah, no, I did not have a very good experience with this movie. Like, I went in, of course, blind, much like you. Yeah. I mean, I read the description, and I guess I'm predisposed thinking gangster movie, you're expecting a certain thing, but I also, when you give a movie, I also have a certain expectation as well. Granted, you didn't know what this was, so that kind of went out the window. But this was also, I knew this was a foreign movie, so it was a foreign gangster movie. That's a lot different than some of the movies like we were talking about it in comparison with earlier. So I really didn't know what to expect, but it did not click with me. Like I said, I don't think it's an actual bad movie. I don't necessarily know if I think it's a good movie either, but I definitely don't think it's a bad movie, because like I said, there's a lot of, from a technical standpoint, things that make it good. It's just the story and how they went about the story just did not do anything for me.
No, I was listening to a few reviews earlier, and there's some people that definitely had the same sentiment, to where they just felt so detached that it didn't do anything for them. It reminds me a lot of Army of Shadows. Like, I remember watching Army of Shadows, and it just drug on and on and on, and there would be occasional action moments, but at the most part, I was just like, oh, I just do not care about anything going on in this movie. But just something about Gomorrah, like, the whole time, I guess because it's looping through characters, I'm always kind of anticipating it going back to the younger characters to see what they're into. And I mean, the more I read about the movie afterwards, the more I appreciated what like the whole toxic waste management deal was all about. So, I mean, I would probably rate it at 4 stars. I really appreciate kind of what it shows. It's not a movie you'd watch every day, but I definitely like how it's this representation of, how deglamorized gangster life, should be represented from an aspect, especially with, the true, villains of the world.
I gave it half of your rating. Mostly for its technical prowess.
All right.
And maybe both of those stars were because they put ScarJo in a TV cameo appearance.
Yeah, there you go. Okie dokie. But we have another movie to talk about, and I think Joey's going to like it a lot more. Stay tuned. And we're back. And next movie we are talking about is Joey's pick, Chungking Express, which is spine number 453. Joey, I'm getting into a little bit why this was your pick for this episode. What's about?
All right, so being in some of the different movie groups that I think we're both in, I saw some people kind of talking about it, and I think my first introduction to it was someone was like, "Hey man, I found this movie in maybe like a garage sale or like a Goodwill or something, something like that. They found it thrifting basically, and they propped down this picture of the DVD release. It wasn't the Criterion version, but it was just a DVD release, and it, excuse me, big across the top. Quentin Tarantino presents Chungking Express. I didn't know what the fuck it was, but it had the words that mattered, Quentin Tarantino presents, on it. And ever since then, I've been intrigued by it, but I had no clue what it was about. And it's also like this mythical rare find, as it's it's OOP on Criterion for both DVD and Blu-ray now. So, but it's on the channel, so it's made it easy to watch and a good one to do for this. Yeah. Especially versus what I was originally going to do. So it seemed like a good time to pick it. So, and what it's about, in a nutshell, is you got these two kind of like heartbroken Hong Kong policemen, and then they also fall in love out of their heartbreak. One with a mysterious female underworld figure, the other with this beautiful and ethereal server at a late night restaurant that he frequents. So basically, it's in two halves, and the stories are very loosely tied together through basically one place and
happenstance, meet up.
Yeah. So it's very sleek, very stylish, and it's very centered around these hopeless and excessive romantic people.
Yep.
And then obviously QT was a huge fan of the film, so much so that he did the QT Presents part of it. I think you said there's lots of videos where he's talked about how much he loves the film and different breakdowns and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think whenever he was touring with Pulp Fiction is when he first saw it, and he was, because apparently Wong Kar-Wai has a lot of Godardian influence, and Godard is another one of Tarantino's auteurs that he really enjoys his style. So, but yeah, whenever you jump into the world of Chungking Express and Wong Kar-Wai, it's a really good story, but man, the visuals, that's where it's at. You got all these vivid colors. I love this scene where he's painting across like this jukebox and you see these twirling discs and it's all this color. And then he has this really cool effect wherever it's like this fast motion camera in some of like the action scenes. And it just almost a blur to look at, but it is still you can understand what's taking place at the same time. It's a lot to look at first, but it really, I think it pulls you in with this. Although like the first part of the movie is a little weaker, I think this aspect of it, really kind of draws you in.
Yeah, and it's definitely something you've never really seen in a movie. The only thing I can think is similar is where they wanted in movies where they wanted to show you that time was elapsing very quickly, but in a very short period of time. But in this, it was to kind of focus you in on this one thing, and I guess focus you in on this one character, and the rest of the world was kind of moving around it, even if it was just a short period of time. It was very, very good camera work. I guess is for a lack of better term.
And it basically starts at the end of their story, because that would be the last time that they saw each other. And then we back it all the way up into, so this first hopeless romantic is Cop 223, and so what's his deal, Joey?
So pretty much Cop 223 is completely heartbroken, because his girlfriend has broken up with him. She broke up with him on April Fool's, and so that's April 1st, obviously, and his birthday is May 1st, and he's going to give her a month to see if it's a joke or not, to see if she was playing a cruel April Fool's joke on him. And the way that he is coping, is that he is buying canned pineapple that expires on May 1st. Only May 1st. No other day, just May 1st. And that leads to some interesting interactions with some store clerks. Where like, hey, do you have one that expires on May 1st? Well, what day is it? April 30th.
28th.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think I stocked expired goods? Oh, you like expired goods so much. Here's a whole box of it. Like,
Yeah.
So
he's pretty nutty. Yeah. And May 1st, like you said, May 1st is his birthday. So like at the very end of this, like basically he's given her an expiration date on when they are done for good, and he's pretty depressed by the end. And he eats 30 cans of pineapple.
Yeah, he eats 30 cans of pineapple. And then he goes, well, my stomach was kind of rumbling. I hear alcohol can settle an upset stomach.
Quotes in this movie are great.
He goes to the bar. He also had been frequenting this restaurant, and the bar owner was like trying to set him up with, or not bar owner, but restaurant owner was like, hey, you should ask out this girl May, and then he doesn't, and she moves on to this other guy named Richard who works there. And that's kind of some setting up for later kind of deal.
Yeah, foreshadowing, sure.
Yeah, and then while all of this is going on, you see the lady from the beginning of the movie.
Yep, she has a blonde wig, trench coat.
Yeah. Like a beige trench coat, not Matrix trench coat.
Mm-hmm. Very mysterious. She's involved with this kind of drug trade thing, some crime, and I guess it's all. You said at one point we see a store sign that says Chungking Express, so I guess that's what that's all about.
Yeah, it's like she's getting the guys fed, and like she's like, hey, have some beers, and there's like 40-ounce beers or whatever, like humongous beers. But then you walk by, and just on a yellow piece of paper in the door is like Chungking Express. So I guess that's the name of the store. But yeah, she's very mysterious.
Getting those condoms and filling them up with some drugs, some probably heroin or cocaine or something.
Yeah, it's one of the two. It's one of those powdered substances.
Yep.
And yeah, they're putting the drugs everywhere, like in orifices on the body, under shoes, making women who aren't pregnant, in bears, like just everywhere. She's gonna get her some drug mules and gonna, I guess, since they're Indians, and send them.
Getting a woman pregnant that wasn't pregnant? What are you talking about?
There was a woman who she put some drugs in, I guess, like a teddy, like a big stuffed animal, and shoved it under her dress to make.
Okay, make it look like she has a baby bump. Gotcha, I remember that part.
Yeah. I guess I should have been more clear there. That's my fault. I knew what I was talking about. That's what matters, people. Jeez.
All right.
On now.
So homeboy, the alcohol doesn't sit well on his stomach. He ralphs all that up, goes back to the bar, and then Blondie happens to walk in.
And he's like enchanted with. He was like, I'm gonna fall in love with the next woman who walks in the bar.
Oh yeah.
And boom, there in walks Lady in blonde wig.
Do you like pineapple?
Yeah, he asked her, do you like pineapple in Cantonese? She ignores him. He asked her, do you like pineapple in Mandarin? She ignores him. He asked her, do you like pineapple in Japanese? She ignores him. He asked her, do you like pineapple in English? She ignores him. He starts over in Cantonese.
Yeah, and then she looks over and is like, your Cantonese is pretty good. So yeah, she's messing with him the whole time.
Yeah. And then she basically is like, I don't want to be messed with. Leave me alone. And he kind of just keeps talking. And somehow, without asking her if she has a boyfriend, he asks her if she has a boyfriend. And they just keep talking. And
yeah.
But she's basically like, I really don't want to be bothered. And
it's closing time, right?
And then, Semisonic Song comes on. And they leave and go to a hotel. And she passes out.
Yep.
And he just eats all the room service in human history, like burgers, fries.
Watches movies, heads out at dawn.
Yeah, takes her shoes off and cleans them, and then goes running. Then goes jogging in the rain so he doesn't cry over May, his ex-girlfriend. He even does the whole thing. Oh, I was dumped by 2 Mays, the actual girl May and the other girl who he never even asked out. And he's like, no more Mays. And there's plenty of guys who are like, well, I'm never gonna ask out such and such girl with such and such name ever again. So that's pretty.
Yeah. His whole mentality. Yeah, if he exercise, he'll sweat. Then he'll not have any water for his tears. Yeah. 223 is very sappy, but I like him a lot more than the blonde lady.
Who guns down a gaijin. Well, I guess we're not in Japan, so I guess it's not a gaijin, but she guns down a Caucasian dude in China.
Yeah, there just happens to be this this white guy making out with this Asian girl that also has a blonde wig, and she shows up and guns him down. And for me, this is the weakest.
Sort of jilted lover, some sort of guilt. Yeah.
Perhaps, for me, this is the one weak part of the movie is just because it's just so hard to get a grasp of what this mysterious woman's about. I mean, she is the mysterious woman, but maybe a little bit too much so. I don't know.
I mean, that was the third person she killed in this movie, so because she starts running, she starts freaking out when the Indians, I guess, didn't make it into India or whatever. She also kidnapped some little kid, and then like less than an hour later gave her back.
Oh right, yeah. I remember that
so
part.
I mean, she's kind of all over the place. So, but homeboy was in love with her because she paged him and was like, "Hey, happy birthday," and yeah. So he clearly had some issues he needed to work out, because
And he's all about that page because what's the quote? If memories could be canned, would they also have expiration dates? If so, I hope they last for centuries, because he's just so touched by her reaching back out to him.
Yeah, and then his pager password is like "love lasts for 10,000 years" or something.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. There's so much little stuff in this movie.
Yeah. So, and then how we transition to the second part of the movie is that restaurant where he was supposed to ask out May and didn't, because she went out. The second May, not his ex-girlfriend May, but May who worked at the restaurant.
Well, Faye, right?
But he's supposed to ask out May and Richard, and then the owner was like, "Hey, you should ask out. I got this new person started named Faye. You should ask her out before Richard does." And then he sees Richard and was like, "I don't like men," but then he becomes like he literally passes by Faye. They almost bump into each other, and he's like, "That's as close as I'll ever be. That's as close as I ever came to her." And within 6 hours later, she was in love with another man. And then we transition to the second half of the movie.
And this is when, the music throughout's really good, but man, the second half, it really cranks it. We get the California Dreamin' starts playing, all the leaves are brown, California. Goodness, that's a great song. And I love how it plays over and over again. And it's playing so loud. And so the new cop is Cop 663. So he goes up to this like American cafe kind of deal, just kind of you walk up to the counter and order. And the California Dreamin's playing so loud they can't even hardly understand what they're saying. It's like, "You like loud music? Yes, the louder the better. Stops me from thinking." So many great lines in this. But so we backtrack a little bit and find out more about Cop 663, and he's getting over another love interest, right?
Yeah, he's getting over him and his now ex-girlfriend, who was a stewardess, and they live basically next to the airport. But you see just like a flashback scene, and they're being very playful and like flirty, and she's I guess she's wearing like a skirt or some shorts or whatever, and just like a bra, and they're playing around in the house, and then they start being very sexual, and they're playing with like toy jets or planes, which makes sense since she's a stewardess. And then
I think it's like a United United Airlines plane or something. He even dunks into the fish tank. But yeah, man, that's a steamy scene, especially they start getting frisky.
Yeah, and then and it's not one of those like they're just banging, going at it.
It's very sensual.
Yeah, it was very sensual because showing how much they were in love with each other, and that kind of stuff, because it's him having like a memory kind of thing, I do believe. And then you see she's like going to work, and she's like bit down, and she's like waving to him like across the street where he can see in the apartment, and
right.
And then you snap back and he's talking about ordering a chef salad, and the dude's like, "You always order chef salad." He's like, "Well, that's what my girlfriend wants." And she's like, "Well, why don't you try something different? Try fish and chips." And he's like, "Well, I don't know." And he's like, "Why don't you take both?" And he's like, "It'll break
Good
the bank."
salesman.
"Oh, it's not that expensive." And then he comes back, "Oh, fish and chips." "Oh, well, she liked it." "Well, this time take her fish and chip and hot dogs."
Yeah.
And then it was like, and then this time take her pizza. And
Yeah, the boss of the little cafe thing, he was a trip. He was a nice guy. Pay the electric bill.
Oh, pay the electric bill. I'm paying the. I can't. I'm in too many people in the building. What?
Yeah. Goodness. All right. So moving on. So the hostess girlfriend's leaving the cop. I guess she's gonna go to California. That was what was happening there. Or she just takes off in general.
Yeah, they just break up. She doesn't do anything with California, because remember, you see her at the very end of the movie. Maybe not the very end, but you see her on the motorcycle in the gas station.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, she leaves the breakup letter and the keys with the diner, because they know she knows the cop will be back by there, and they'll hand it off. But they offer it to him, and he wants no part of it, and then everybody goes and reads it themselves.
Yep, including Faye, who then, like, she's sitting there at work one day, and she, like, daydreams about being in an apartment, and then I guess decides that since she daydreamed it, she might as well fucking do it, and so she decides to do it.
Yep, and she becomes obsessed with cleaning up his place, and she's not going to be with him directly because, well, I mean, even before that, like, she keeps like going out of her way to like run into him whenever he's at different cafes and stuff.
Well, that was after he turns down the letter, he takes, and she puts it back on the board and puts a pin in it. He decides to take time off from work, and then while he's off work, you get this weird scene where he's like talking to like his towels, and so you see how he's coping, which is not very good. And then he ends up on like a different beat, and so she's like out picking up supplies, and she runs into him, and that's when she figures out where he is, and then she intentionally keeps running into him like with like stuff for a house, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm decorating a friend's house," but it's his house.
All right.
Yeah.
He's totally just kind of in his own little day-to-day rhythm of being a cop, and he has no idea that Faye's going there every day and cleaning up and dusting and doing everything just about over there. Giving him new fish.
Giving him new fish, new tablecloth, eventually like new sheets.
She dives into the bed and goes looking for the other girl's hair, and she finds it and freaks out.
Yeah, and then she goes to open the door, and he's inside, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "I live here." And she's like, "Oh, I came to sell fish." And then she like freaks out, and he like starts massaging her, and then she like falls asleep, and then he falls asleep. And in that whole scene, he like puts a CD on, and it's the same song from the cafe, California Dreamin', and she's like, "Hey, you like this song too?" And he's like, "No, it's my ex-girlfriend's." And she's like, "That's a lie. This is my CD. I left it here days ago." And she thinks she's thinks she's so slick. And then you find out later that
he hands it to her
slick.
later, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Even earlier than that, there's this scene where she's in there and he comes home and she like hides under a blanket so she doesn't get caught. And then I think the time she does get caught, that's whenever there's like he leaves the faucet on, and so like the whole place is flooded. So he's complaining about having to clean it up, and I think there's a line about like how an apartment will cry or something.
Yeah, it was after that. Like, he cleans up the entire apartment, and then, like, since he can see into the apartment, like, he can see that she's in there, from, like, the building next door, and so he, like, comes over there, and then, she hides, and then, he's like, "What are you doing in my apartment?" And she's like, "You said to drop by." And then, she runs and escapes, and then he goes back to the restaurant where she works, and, like, he's like, "Hey, I came for my letter." And then he's like, "Hey, the boss says you're off tomorrow at this time. Let's go get dinner." And she's like, "Well, just because boss says I'm off means I have to get dinner?" And he's like, "No, I'll be here," which the name of the place was California. And then he's like, "Here's your CD back. You left it at my place." So he wasn't stupid. And then so he gets ready for this date, and uh, he starts playing. He gets there early, and he starts playing music on the jukebox, waiting for her, and waiting for her, and waiting for her. And then finally, the owner of the restaurant comes and gives him a note.
Yeah.
Gives her, and it's like, oh, it's so heartbreaking, because it's like she didn't even come herself, and he's like, she's not coming. She went to California, and you're just like, no, but you knew she had wanted to travel, because in one of the times where they were, she ran into him. She was like, no, I want to travel and go to California. I almost have enough.
I think she plays with the same jet that they play with earlier on, and then she kind of like marvels at the ex-girlfriend's flight stewardess outfit, and she essentially becomes his ex-girlfriend in a cyclical way.
Yeah, and then he he leaves, and he hasn't opened the letter. Like, he goes into a restaurant, not a restaurant, a gas station or a convenience store to like get a drink, and then he runs into his ex, and they do that, oh, how have you been, blah blah blah,
Right.
and she's like, well, you look better in the uniform, and he's like, well, so did you. And then, being the jerk that his ex-girlfriend is, when the guy she's with on like a motorcycle like revs the engine, like, hey bitch, hurry up, she runs out without paying, and she's like, you'll pay for me. I've been like, no, I'm gonna arrest you, I'm a fucking cop. But he does, and then it starts raining, and he like throws the note in the trash can, and then you see him come back and open it, and it was like a napkin that was like a handwritten boarding pass for a year later.
And it's smudged out, though.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh man, okay.
And he put it in like the hot dog heater in order to try to dry it out or something.
Yeah, he put it in the hot dog roller to like try to dry it. And then you fast forward, and it's a year later, and then you see Faye dressed up as a stewardess, and she has long hair, and is like done up in braid, like a braid, but it's like circled around like her hair. It's not down her back or anything. And she walks up to the restaurant where she had worked for so long, and she goes to open it, and there's the cop renovating it.
Right.
And this is just such a good scene, because they're just talking, and he's like, I need to ask you a question, and he asked her about California and stuff first, and she's like, it's whatever. And he's listening to California Dreamin' really loudly, and she's like, oh, you like loud music now too? And he turns it off, and he goes and gets the note that he has tacked to this board, and he's like, what would you do if I had brought you a boarding pass like this? And she's like, oh, I can give you another one right now. And she grabs a napkin,
and where do you want to go?
Where do you want to go? And it's just like, okay, it's just, yep, the sap got me. I can't.
Yeah, it's a very cute ending, and then it goes all to white as the credits start to play. You said it was a Cranberry song?
I thought it was. I could be wrong. That's who I thought it was, and I could be very wrong about that. That's who me and Carl thought it was. But if you looked it up, then you're probably correct. But that's who I thought it was.
Well, I wasn't quite sure what the name of it is. I thought I saw Dream Lover online, but anyways, I was watching one of these Quentin Tarantino Presents things, and he was talking about Faye, and apparently she was a big pop star whenever this movie came out, and she actually sang one of the versions of that within the movie. Definitely the manic pixie dream girl type. I mean, a little creepy that she's sneaking into his place all the time, but you kind of let it go because she is, such a charming little lady there. She's all over the place. I mean, her boss keeps telling her that he needs her to pay the electric bill or whatever, and she just keeps finding ways like why she can't get over there. And then eventually the electricity goes out, and so there's a really cool scene where they fill the whole thing up with these candles, and it just looks beautiful. This Wong Kar-Wai shot. And the other one I really, really like is whenever she's like sitting up on the escalator, and like the side of the escalator has this reflective side to it, and like he shoots her straight on, but you see like her double, which is super, super awesome. Ace's shot.
Yes, it is Dream Person, which is a cover of Dreams by the Cranberries, and it was written by Dolores the lead singer of the Cranberries, and Noel Hogan, performed by Faye Wong. So yes, the Cranberry song. guess.
Very cool. Yeah, a lot packed in there. Yeah, it's almost like the personality-less blonde lady turns into the cop, and then the obsessive, sappy cop turns into Faye, a little bit.
Both cops were both kind of pretty savvy. They were both very similar.
But I would definitely say the second one was more like reserve, like more, what's the word? Not a. He's
Not
more
willing
reserved.
Yeah, he wasn't. I'm gonna eat 30 cans of pineapple. Depressed.
No, yeah, not that guy. Extroverted or introverted. He's more introverted. That's what I was going for there.
Yeah, this is definitely one I would love to add to my collection. Which, I mean, it's OOP, but aren't they coming out with a box set at the end of the year?
That's been. Yeah, I think there were. Yeah, I think there were. Criterion had rumored like a Fellini box set. They already announced the what's her name? I have to look that up. Lady who directed Cleo from 5 to 7.
That I can't help you with, brother. I have no clue.
That is Agnes Varda box set. They've announced that. Yeah, there's been a rumor about a Fellini box set and then a Wong Kar-Wai box set for the longest time. Shoot, maybe Wes Anderson will get a box set. Everybody gets a box set. Bergman got one. I think they made a Kurosawa DVD one back in the day.
They did, and one of the things I was going to mention, because we've had some technical issues and had to reshoot a couple of things, is we were talking about some of the movies we picked up, which we didn't talk about on the Spinal Cut, but you were talking about how you don't blind buy stuff. I did blind buy that Zatoichi box set, and I'm glad I did. I bought it right before it went OOP, and so I got it for like $100 because I got it for half off. It's like $400 now. So it's good that I did. I mean, there's no way I'm not gonna like get $100 in value out of 25 movies. So I mean, that's like $4 a movie. Like,
all right. Yeah, I gave Chungking Express 4 stars the first time I saw it. Yeah, I'd easily move it up to 4.5. There's so much little charming intricacies throughout this whole thing. Just that one little weak part at the very beginning, but yeah, it's Wong Kar-Wai, just a visually dazzling movie. Great quotes, great music, very charming. It's great. I mean, I never saw myself getting swept up into a Chinese love story, but Chungking Express will do it to you.
I definitely think it's 5 stars. I think it's a masterpiece. I mean, I don't think it's perfect by any means, but I don't think giving something 5 stars means that it's perfect. I just think that it means it's a masterpiece. And I mean, I guess if you've listened to how I compared this movie, especially to the first one, you can definitely night and day. So
did you have any favorite shots? I think you mostly just focus on the story.
The story for sure. I did like the shot with the jukebox, and that's one you talked about. That's one that I do remember a lot. And I remember, for some reason, the one of 663's girlfriend looking up across into the hotel and then like waving at each other. Those are the two that for some reason stand out. And I just remember that both of the girls like wearing sunglasses a lot. Like, I don't know, maybe there's a shot per se, but just a lot of like details like that, or like all the product placement where, you know, now it'd be in your face. And even though there was a lot of product placement, it was just because there would be items that they would buy. Like, here's a Coke. The dude would be selling Coke at his restaurant. So here's the paper cups that say Coke on them. Or here's my vending, or my fountain machine says Coke. He's buying pineapple, so it's Del Monte pineapple. You know, he's drinking a beer. It's Heineken. You know, like it's, you know, it's.
What I've heard, Wong Kar-Wai actually come from the making commercials. That's why he's such a visually strong director, and yeah, wonder if that plays into it at all.
It could have been, because, you know, now all that stuff, it would be just plastered so far in your face because they wouldn't be it wouldn't just be because it's everyday use kind of thing. It would be we made a deal with Coke, we made a deal with Heineken.
Now the Coke fountain machine is very, very prominent in that restaurant, but otherwise, I totally get what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and they may have, and Coke may have done that, but I mean, it makes sense for it to be prominent in the restaurant because it's a fountain machine, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, there was a kind of an interesting. So what? She was like relabeling his sardines or something at one point.
Yeah. She took the labels off and I guess put a label from a different set of sardines onto them, and he was like, even the sardines taste different now with his
that was pretty gross.
with his ramen. Yeah. that bachelor food, man.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, you said it was a masterpiece and Chungking Express. Good talking to you about it. It's good.
For sure.
It's nice that you enjoyed one of the movies. I enjoyed both of them. I thought they were both very visually strong movies.
I think this year's been a lot different from the first year, where like for the most part, I've enjoyed both movies or 4 movies way more than I did the first season, where it was like I hated both movies. So hey, it happens.
Good balance. All right. So what's coming up on next episode?
All right. So for next episode, I am going to pick an all-time classic I haven't seen.
Okay. My all-time classic that I have picked it's called Touch of Evil from Orson Welles. Don't know much about it. It's been on my radar for the longest time, and I needed an excuse to watch Touch of Evil, which is supposed to be one of his great films.
Honestly, I've never even heard that, and I was like, all-time classic, Justin, and we haven't even heard of this, but Orson Welles, okay, I guess you slid that one in there. I'm going to go with one I think more people have probably heard of. You've probably seen it. It's Sabrina.
No, I hadn't seen that. That has Harrison Ford in it, right?
No. The remake has Harrison Ford.
Oh, okay.
No, we're going back. So we're going back. Going 1954, Humphrey Bogart and Audrey.
Okay.
Yeah, which is why I started with a Humphrey Bogart quote.
The poster for Touch of Evil says, "The strangest vengeance ever planned." I'm telling you, it's a classic.
Dude, look, I'm with you. Look, I need to see more Orson Welles. So I think we're gonna be in for a treat.
Did you have a backup on this one?
Well, this was my backup. I changed when you changed one of the categories, and you added in
an epic instead of okay.
Yeah, when you added in the epic, because this was originally Gone with the Wind.
Oh, yeah, that'd been a big one.
Yeah, and since especially now that we know what that is because of planning and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah.
All righty, let's wrap this baby up. Thanks so much to everyone that is following the show. And if you want to join the club, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out Sabrina. Check out Touch of Evil for the next episode. And then you can join us in the conversation. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you would like us to answer any question on the show, just send it to the Average Joe's Movie Clubcast at gmail.com. Also, we have a Facebook page where you have a button that just does it for you, or you can go to either one of our Letterboxd and send us questions on there. Or if tons of you, I'm sure, that are listening know us personally, so send us questions if you text message or Facebook message or whatever, and send us some questions. We love interacting. And having questions and different things that maybe we haven't thought of, because we both have very certain lines of thought that we both run on, and sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't. But having different lines of thought is very good, and we do like interacting with you guys. So would be very much appreciated.
Nicely said.
All right. So Justin, why do we do this show?
Because we love talking about pineapples. No, I mean movies. Good night, everybody.
Night.
stinking about it.
Non mi piace il feeling. Spirito Santo.
I think this just might be my masterpiece.